You've been eating eggs your whole life, scrambled, boiled, maybe in an omelet on Sunday mornings. And you were told they're healthy, packed with protein, great for you. But after 60, one specific way you're preparing them is quietly wrecking your cholesterol, inflaming your arteries, and accelerating something no doctor is warning you about. There's a lie sitting on your breakfast plate right now. And the worst part? You've been told it's good for you. For decades, eggs have been praised as one of the most complete, affordable, nutritious foods on the planet. And honestly, that part is true. Eggs are remarkable, genuinely remarkable. They contain every single amino acid your body needs. They carry choline, which your brain depends on more than most people realize. They hold lutein, zeaxanthin, vitamins A, D, E, B12, selenium, phosphorus. An egg is a biological masterpiece packed into a fragile shell. But here's where things get dangerous, and I don't say that lightly. What nobody explained to you, what almost no one in mainstream nutrition is willing to say clearly, is that after a certain age, the way you eat eggs matters far more than whether you eat them. And the difference between doing it right and doing it wrong, it's not small. It's not a minor footnote in some obscure journal. It's the difference between protecting your heart and silently feeding the exact biochemical process that leads to arterial plaque, chronic systemic inflammation, and cognitive decline that you'll blame on just getting older. Let me be blunt with you. This isn't about demonizing eggs. I would never do that. But I've watched too many patients, smart, health-conscious people in their 60s and 70s, walk into appointments with rising LDL, stubborn inflammation markers, and early signs of vascular stiffness that shouldn't be there. Not at their activity level, not with their diet. And when we traced it back, when we actually sat down and examined what they were doing every single morning with meticulous regularity, it was the eggs. Not the eggs themselves, the mistake they were making with them. And that mistake has a name. But we'll get there, I promise. First, I need you to understand something that fundamentally changed the way I think about nutrition in aging bodies. It's a study. And normally, I don't lead with research. I think stories teach better than data. But this one you need to hear. In 2019, a massive study published in JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association, tracked over 29,000 adults for an average of 17.5 years. Nearly 2 decades of following people, watching what they ate, measuring what happened inside their bodies. What they found rattled the nutrition world. Each additional 300 milligrams of dietary cholesterol consumed per day, roughly the amount in 1.5 eggs, was associated with a 17% increased risk of cardiovascular disease and an 18% increased risk of all-cause mortality. 17%. Let that land for a second. Sit with it. Now, and this is crucial, before you throw your egg carton in the trash, that study didn't say eggs are poison. It said something far more nuanced and far more important. The context in which you consume cholesterol matters enormously. Especially, and this is the part they buried in the fine print, especially as your body ages and progressively loses its ability to regulate lipid metabolism with the same efficiency it had at 35. And this is where the contrast begins. Because everything you've been told about eggs, every reassuring headline, every cheerful nutritionist segment, every eat your eggs, they're nature's multivitamin advice, comes from a framework built for younger, more metabolically flexible bodies. The rules change after 60. Nobody updated you. They told you, dietary cholesterol doesn't really affect blood cholesterol. The reality? After 60, your liver's ability to compensate for incoming cholesterol slows down significantly. The feedback loop that kept everything in balance for decades, it weakens. Your LDL receptors become sluggish, less responsive, less efficient at clearing excess particles from your blood. So that daily 3-egg scramble you've been enjoying since retirement, the one you thought was keeping you strong and healthy, Your body is no longer handling it the way it used to. The surplus cholesterol isn't being cleared. It's accumulating, quietly, persistently, in places you can't feel until it's too late. They told you. Eggs are great for muscle maintenance in older adults. And yes, protein is critical for preventing sarcopenia, that age-related muscle wasting that steals your independence. Absolutely true. But here's what they left out. When you fry those eggs in butter or vegetable oil at high heat every morning, when the edges go crispy and the yolk turns fully solid, you're not just eating protein anymore. You're creating oxidized cholesterol, oxysterols. And these are among the most atherogenic compounds your bloodstream can encounter. These oxidized particles don't float around harmlessly waiting to be processed. They embed into your arterial walls like shrapnel. They trigger immune responses that never fully resolve. They accelerate plaque formation in ways that regular, intact cholesterol simply doesn't. This is the part that makes me frustrated. Genuinely frustrated. Because this information exists. It's in the published literature. It's been available for years. But somehow, the message that reaches the average person is still just, eggs good, eat more eggs, don't worry about it. No, it's not that simple. Not anymore. Not for you. Let me tell you about Colleen. She was 67, a retired landscape architect, the kind of woman who designed outdoor spaces for hospitals and public parks for 30 years. Still sharp as a thorn, walked 3 miles every morning without fail, rain or shine, even in February. She came to see a specialist because her annual blood work showed something alarming. A sudden spike in LDLP, that's LDL particle number, which is far more telling than the total LDL number most doctors glance at. Her C-reactive protein was elevated too, a quiet marker of inflammation smoldering somewhere inside her. She was genuinely scared. "I eat clean," she said, her voice tight. "I walk every day. I don't smoke. I haven't had a drink in 4 years. What am I doing wrong?" The answer was sitting on her breakfast plate. Every morning, without exception, 3 large eggs scrambled in a cast iron pan with a generous pat of butter, cooked at high heat until the edges were golden brown and slightly crispy. She'd been doing this for years, decades actually, and for most of those years, her body handled it perfectly. No red flags, no warning signs. But something had shifted, the way something always shifts past a certain biological threshold. Her metabolism had changed, her liver's cholesterol regulation had downshifted, and that beloved morning ritual, the one that felt healthy, that felt nourishing, had become a slow, invisible assault on her cardiovascular system. Nobody told her, not her primary care physician, not the nutritionist she saw briefly 3 years prior. Not one single professional along the way flagged it. And that right there is what makes this so deeply, personally infuriating to me. Here's what the science actually reveals, and what Colleen learned that changed everything for her. The cholesterol inside an egg yolk, in its raw or gently cooked state, is relatively stable. It's bound within the phospholipid matrix of the yolk, protected, structured, manageable. Your body can process it, use it, regulate it. Cholesterol itself isn't the villain. Your body manufactures it on purpose. It builds cell membranes with it. It synthesizes hormones from it. It needs it. But the moment you expose that yolk to high temperatures, especially in the presence of fat and oxygen and extended cooking time, the cholesterol oxidizes. It becomes structurally warped, damaged at the molecular level. And oxidized cholesterol behaves nothing like intact cholesterol inside your body. Nothing. Regular cholesterol? Your liver can reabsorb it, recycle it, regulate the levels with elegant precision. Oxidized cholesterol? It bypasses those regulatory systems entirely. It gets taken up by macrophages, immune cells, inside your artery walls, where it transforms them into bloated, lipid-gorged foam cells. These foam cells are the building blocks of atherosclerotic plaque, the literal foundation of heart disease, stroke, and vascular dementia. Research published in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine has shown definitively that oxysterols derived from heated cholesterol-rich foods are directly linked to endothelial dysfunction, the very first stage of cardiovascular disease, the stage where your arteries lose their ability to relax, dilate, and protect themselves. So the mistake, the one I've been building toward this entire time, is not eating eggs. The mistake is how you're cooking them. High heat, extended cooking time, added fats like butter or cooking oil, browning, crisping, turning that yolk fully solid. All of it, every single one of those choices, transforms a perfectly healthy food into a delivery vehicle for some of the most harmful lipid particles known to cardiovascular science. And wait, it gets worse. Because there's a second layer to this that almost nobody is discussing. Not your doctor, not the morning news, not the wellness influencers with their avocado toast reels. When you cook eggs at high temperatures, you also trigger the formation of something called advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These are toxic compounds created when proteins or fats react with sugars under intense heat. Fried eggs, hard scrambled eggs cooked until rubbery, omelets browned on the outside. They are absolutely loaded with AGEs. And AGEs are now understood to be one of the primary molecular drivers of aging-related inflammation. They bind to specific receptors called RAGE on cell surfaces throughout your body and activate NF-κB, the master transcription factor for chronic, systemic, low-grade inflammation. The kind of inflammation you can't feel, but the kind that destroys you from within. Joints aching every morning? AGEs are part of it. Brain fog creeping in around 3 p.m.? AGEs cross the blood-brain barrier. Skin losing its elasticity faster than it should? AGEs degrade collagen and elastin directly. Kidneys working harder than they used to? AGEs accumulate preferentially in renal tissue. And here's the irony. The bitter, almost cruel irony that genuinely keeps me up some nights. The very people trying to eat healthy, the ones who chose eggs over sugary cereal, the ones who actually care about getting enough protein, enough nutrients, enough fuel for their aging bodies. Those people, the conscientious ones, the trying hard ones, are the ones most likely to be harming themselves with this specific mistake. Because they're doing the right thing the wrong way, and nobody corrected them. So what is the right way? Let me tell you, and it's simpler than you think. Soft-boiled, poached, gently steamed, cooked at low temperatures with minimal added fat or none at all. A soft-boiled egg, where the white is fully set but the yolk remains runny, creamy, golden, preserves the cholesterol in its stable, non-oxidized state. The choline stays intact and bioavailable. The lutein and zeaxanthin, those carotenoids your aging eyes depend on, maintain their full potency. The protein is completely digestible, and the AGE content dramatically, measurably lower. Studies directly comparing cooking methods have demonstrated that a soft-boiled egg produces up to 50% fewer AGEs than a fried egg, 50% less inflammatory damage, from the exact same food. The only difference? How you applied heat. Poaching is even more protective in some respects. No added fat whatsoever, gentle water temperature hovering just below a simmer, and virtually zero oxidation of the yolk. And here's something else that Colleen discovered, something I want to make sure lands with you, because it's one of those quiet truths that changes everything once you understand it. It's not just how you cook them, it's what you eat them with. Consuming eggs alongside fiber-rich foods, vegetables, steel-cut oats, leafy greens, even a simple handful of berries, actually blunts cholesterol absorption in your gut. Soluble fiber physically binds to bile acids and helps escort excess cholesterol out of your digestive tract before it ever reaches your bloodstream. A poached egg nestled over wilted spinach with a side of warm oatmeal? That is a completely different metabolic event than 3 fried eggs sitting on white toast smeared with butter. Same food, radically, profoundly different outcome. And if somewhere along the way you were told that egg whites are the safe option, that you should carefully separate and discard the yolk, let me stop you right there. That advice is outdated. It was based on a simplistic understanding of cholesterol that the science has since moved beyond. Frankly, it's also wasteful. The yolk is where virtually all the nutrition lives. The choline your aging brain is literally starving for, it's in the yolk. The vitamin D your bones desperately need as absorption declines with age, yolk. The B12 that protects your peripheral nerves from deterioration, yolk. Throwing away the yolk to avoid cholesterol is like ripping the engine out of a car because you're afraid of the gasoline. The solution was never to avoid the yolk. It was to stop destroying it with excessive heat. You know, I think about this a lot, more than I probably should, about how many well-meaning health recommendations have been reversed, refined, or outright abandoned over the past 40 years, and how many millions of people kept faithfully following the old advice, the outdated guidance, without anyone ever tapping them on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, we know more now. You should adjust." Eggs were vilified in the 1980s. Cholesterol was the boogeyman. People threw away yolks by the billions. Then eggs were gloriously redeemed in the early 2000s. Eat them freely. They're superfoods. Then the JAMA study in 2019 partially re-questioned them, but with crucial nuance that most headlines completely butchered. The truth was never black and white. It was always about context, about preparation, about your body's current capacity to handle what you're giving it, not the capacity it had 2 decades ago. If any of this is resonating with you, if you're sitting there right now mentally replaying your morning routine, rethinking that sizzling pan, recognizing patterns you somehow never questioned before, I genuinely want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what your egg routine looks like. Tell me if something just clicked that hadn't clicked before. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this channel is built for exactly these moments. The overlooked details, the mistakes hiding in plain sight, the science no one translates into language you can actually use. Hit that subscribe button so you're here when the next one drops. Now, let me give you the practical framework, because understanding the science is meaningless if you don't walk away from this with a clear, actionable plan you can start tomorrow morning. First, limit high-heat egg cooking. That means reducing or eliminating fried eggs, hard scrambled eggs, and any preparation where the yolk turns fully solid, browning occurs, or edges crisp up. If you love scrambled eggs, I understand, many people do, cook them low and slow. A soft scramble, where the curds are still moist, tender, and slightly glossy. That is a world apart from a dry, rubbery, overcooked scramble in terms of cholesterol oxidation and AGE formation. Worlds apart. Second, prioritize soft-boiled, poached, or gently steamed eggs. These methods keep the yolk's cholesterol intact, preserve the nutrient profile, and dramatically reduce harmful compound formation. 6 to 7 minutes in gently simmering water for a soft boil. That's all it takes. That's the entire intervention. Third, pair your eggs with fiber every single time. Vegetables, whole grains, leafy greens, a piece of fruit. This one habit alone changes the entire lipid impact of the meal. It's almost embarrassingly simple, and yet almost nobody does it consistently. Fourth, calibrate the quantity to your body's current reality. If you're metabolically healthy with clean blood work, 1 to 2 eggs a day prepared gently is well supported by the current body of evidence. If you already have elevated LDL, elevated particle counts, or existing cardiovascular risk factors, consider 1 egg daily, or 5 to 6 per week, and have a direct, specific conversation with a qualified professional about your personal threshold. Cookie-cutter advice doesn't work when your biology has become this individual. Fifth, and this one surprises people, never reheat cooked eggs in a microwave or refry leftover eggs. Each reheating cycle further oxidizes whatever cholesterol remains and substantially increases AGE content. Cook fresh, eat fresh. It's a small discipline with an outsized impact. Colleen's story didn't end with alarming blood work and a lecture. Not even close. 6 months after changing only one thing, the way she cooked her morning eggs, her LDL particle count dropped by 22%. Her C-reactive protein normalized. Her specialist, who had been preparing to discuss statin therapy, genuinely could not explain the improvement without the dietary change. No new medications, no radical diet overhaul, no expensive supplements, just softer eggs, gentler heat, a runny yolk instead of a scorched one, a different relationship with the same food she'd loved her entire life. That was enough. Think about that. That was enough. There's something almost philosophical in all of this, isn't there? The way the simplest food, something humans have eaten for thousands upon thousands of years, since before civilization had a name, can be either medicine or a slow-acting toxin, depending entirely on the care you bring to preparing it. It mirrors something deeper about how we treat our own bodies. With patience and attention, they respond with resilience you wouldn't believe possible. With carelessness and unexamined habit, they erode. Slowly, silently, until the numbers on a blood panel tell a story we weren't ready to hear. What I find most beautiful about Colleen's experience isn't that she improved her cholesterol numbers. Numbers are just numbers. What moved me was the look on her face when she realized how much power she still carried. At 67 years old, with no pharmaceutical intervention, no surgical procedure, no expensive biohacking protocol, just a shift in how she boiled water and cracked an egg into it. That small, quiet act of paying attention, that was her turning point. And if you've watched this far, stayed through the science, the frustration, the patient story, the practical steps, I want you to know something. I think about people like you more often than you'd guess. The ones who pay attention when it would be easier not to. The ones who read labels, who question what they've been told, who are willing to unlearn something they believed for decades if the evidence points in a new direction. That takes a kind of intellectual courage that most people simply never exercise. If someone you love, a parent, a partner, a friend, a neighbor, still starts every morning with fried eggs and butter and has absolutely no idea about any of what you just heard, please share this video with them. Not as a criticism, not as a lecture over the kitchen table, as a gift. Because sometimes the piece of information that changes the entire trajectory of someone's health doesn't arrive from a doctor's office or a blood test. It arrives from somebody who cared enough to send a link and say, "Hey, watch this. I think it matters." Your body is still listening to you, even now, even after years of habits you didn't know to question. It's still responding, still capable of remarkable repair, remarkable adaptation, remarkable resilience, if you give it the chance. The question was never whether it's too late. It never is. The question is whether you'll keep cooking the same way tomorrow morning. Whether habit will win again, the way it always does when no one challenges it. Or whether tomorrow, the water will simmer just a little gentler. The yolk will stay soft and golden. And your arteries, quietly, gratefully, without fanfare or applause, will begin to notice the difference.